Labour, the self-professed party of change. Led by the human yawn that is Keir Starmer, they are, let's be honest, almost certainly going to be forming the next government. With that being said, let's pretend any of this matters and go through their manifesto. As with the other videos, I've picked a few key points I want to cover that will form the majority of things I think people want to know. While I have read the full manifesto, I will not be covering every single thing that is written in it. If you want a full and thorough understanding of everything in the manifesto, I recommend you actually just go and read the manifesto. This video is specifically for people that have an interest in politics but aren't complete virgins, and with that in mind, let's get cracking because we've all got shit to do. The economy. Okay, in order to set the tone for this video, it's clear that Keir Starmer wants you to know two things. 1. His father is a toolmaker. And 2. He wants to reintroduce stability and reliability to UK politics. In short, it's boring. That's clear throughout their manifesto, but especially with their economic plans. Let's get into it. 1. They've committed to ending the VAT-free status of private schools, raising approximately £1.5 billion. 2. They will establish a national wealth fund, which will attempt to attract £3 of investment from private backers for every £1 of public investment. This fund would then be used to inject cash into things like upgrading ports, creating gigafactories for the automotive industry, and rebuilding our steel industry. 3. They will cap corporation tax at 25% for the entirety of the next parliament. 4. They have committed to introducing what they call a fiscal lock. This is a guarantee that any tax or spending changes must be reviewed by the Office of Budget Responsibility, which is exactly what it says on the tin, and that there will only be one fiscal event per year. This minimises uncertainty for people and businesses so they can think ahead in years rather than weeks or months. It also means that we don't get any Liz Truss level fuck-ups. As I said, it's boring, it's plain, but it's sensible. I'm not going to pretend to know if the National Wealth Fund is a good idea, but I'll presume that Rachel Reeves is more economically literate than I am and see how it goes if they get in. The fiscal lock seems like a good idea, but I don't think guaranteeing a lock of corporation tax is entirely necessary. I just wish there was more of a wink and a nudge to us lefties that want to see a bit of wealth tax or maybe another tax band or something like that. Climate change. 1. Labour will create a new, publicly owned company called Great British Energy, investing £8.3 billion in it over the course of the next Parliament. 2. In an effort to create a zero-carbon electricity programme, they will work alongside the private sector to double onshore wind, triple solar power, and quadruple offshore wind by 2030. 3. They will block the payment of bonuses to the already extremely rich water company executives if they continue to illegally dump literal tons of untreated bum chocolate into our rivers and lakes. They would also bring criminal charges against those that persistently break the law in this regard. Now, I should say, alongside these points, they have also committed to a whole bunch of environmentally friendly shit. They want to plant millions of trees and create new woodlands, establish 3 new national forests in England, and expand nature-rich habitats like bogs and shit. Speaking of shit, we should be bringing our water companies back under public ownership because we clearly can't expect private companies to respect the integrity of the public waterways more than their private profiteering. They should be held criminally liable for what they have already done, and should in the future receive such massive fines for non-compliance that it would actually make upgrading the infrastructure the least costly option for them. Healthcare. 1. They've committed to an additional 8,500 mental health staff that are specifically trained to help those at risk of suicide. 2. They want to put more emphasis on local healthcare services by training thousands more GPs, creating a community pharmacist prescribing service, and empowering other professionals like opticians to refer people directly to specialist services where appropriate. 3. They want to tackle the dental crisis by providing 700,000 more urgent dental appointments, as well as recruiting new dentists to dental deserts. 4. They want to put more emphasis on public health and the prevention of illness by banning the advertising of junk food and energy drinks to under 16s, as well as ensuring that the next generation will never legally be able to buy cigarettes. Honestly, it just seems quite shit, really. Barely any mention of staffing commitments, no real solid commitment to adding X thousand doctors or Y thousand nurses. It feels like an exercise in how good can we make it without actually committing to spending any money on it. I might just be totally off the mark here, or maybe it just seems bad because everyone else knows they won't get into power, so they can overextend in their manifestos a bit, but it just feels depressingly like there's no guarantee that we'll see any real change in the NHS. Defence. 1. They've committed to remaining a part of NATO and improving our relationships with France, Germany, and other defence partners. 2. They will codify the Armed Forces Covenant into law and will appoint an independent Armed Forces Commissioner to improve all aspects of service life. 3. They would, quote, set out the path to spending 2.5% of GDP on defence, but it's unclear if they would do so by the end of their first term. 4. They would commit to supporting Ukraine against Putin, as well as supporting Ukraine's efforts to join NATO. And yeah, I mean, it's good. It's fine. You know? There's really not much to say because there's not really much to be read, to be honest. They say they'll manage our relationship with China more effectively, as well as updating rules on counter-terrorism to prevent people being radicalised online. Education. 1. They've committed to recruiting 6,500 more teachers, which they say will be paid for by the reintroduction of VAT on private schools we talked about before. 2. They want to introduce free breakfast clubs in every primary school, which would make a massive difference for children going to school hungry. 3. They will bring down the costs of school uniforms by limiting the amount of branded items a school can require of its students. 4. They've committed to providing training, an apprenticeship, or help finding work for all 18 to 21-year-olds. And these are pretty good plans. The idea of limiting branding on school uniforms just seems like a no-brainer. And the recruitment drive on teachers at the cost of private schools' VAT exemption is very easy to get on board with. Housing. 1. Labour would overhaul the current planning system and target building 1.5 million new homes by the end of the next Parliament, half of which would be affordable housing. 2. They would introduce a mortgage guarantee scheme to help first-time buyers that would otherwise struggle to get a deposit together, which, let's be honest, is the majority of normal people. 3. I wasn't sure where to put this one, but they have pledged to invest an extra £6.6 billion over the next Parliament on grants and low-interest loans to upgrade the energy efficiency of an estimated 5 million homes. 4. They will create new towns, as well as preventing developers from selling new flats as leaseholds. Obviously, each of these points are good things, but it just feels a bit underwhelming when you're presented with no clear figures or anything to substantiate the spiel. It's like they're just saying, we'll make things better by doing good stuff. It's not really objectionable, but it's not really exciting or indicative of what we can actually expect either. Immigration. 1. They will scrap the Rwanda scheme completely. 2. They're committing to launching what they call a Border Security Command. It's a team of investigators, intelligence officers, and cross-border police that will help fight the smuggling gangs responsible for the crossings. This will be funded using what is saved from the Rwanda policy. 3. They will set up a new returns and enforcement unit, with an additional 1,000 staff, to fast-track removals of people who do not have a right to stay in the UK to safe countries. But actually safe countries though, none of this Rwanda bullshit. There's not really a massive amount of extra stuff to be said here. I mean, they've said that they want to work more upstream to address any humanitarian crises that might result in migration numbers going up, but apart from that, it's very much just a return to normal. And we're on to the special source. This is the section where I cover any interesting bits and bobs that haven't been covered so far, so here we go. 1. They will bring the railways back into public ownership. This is long overdue, and frankly the minimum they could possibly offer when it comes to regaining control of public services. This will be done as contracts expire, so it might take a second to kick in though. 2. Governmental reform. Firstly, they will establish a fully independent Ethics and Integrity Commission, with its own independent chair to keep our MPs from doing a Boris. Secondly, they will immediately remove hereditary peers from the House of Lords. They will also introduce a mandatory retirement age of 80 for members of the House of Lords. They will introduce requirements for Lords to actually participate to stop pricks like Evgeny Lebedev from doing sweet fuck all, and will strengthen the ability for them to remove, quote, disgraced members, which I think might be code for see you later Michelle Mone. They also state that this is all in service of their long-term goal of having an alternative to the Lords that is more representative of the regions and nations rather than it being decided by whoever was buddies with the Prime Minister. And thank fucking God. 3. 16 and 17-year-olds get the right to vote in all elections, but it looks like they won't be scrapping voter ID. Now, I am very excited at the prospect of reforming the House of Lords, and an ethics commission sounds like a much-needed thing to restore some trust in politics. In the interest of governmental reform, I do wish there were some extra steps taken, though. For example, I've just finished reading Ian Dunt's book on why Parliament doesn't work effectively, linked in the description, and he makes a great point. The very centre of our government is run out of a 17th century house. Like, it's a house. Almost everyone that has worked there has reported that it's totally unfit for purpose as a building for accommodating modern working conditions. Now, I understand it's not on many people's top 5 list of things to do when they get into government, but wouldn't it be nice for them to consider how the most important workplace in the UK actually works? Maybe moving them into a larger, more modern workplace that is purpose-built. You can even open number 10 as a museum or something and let the public come in and see where Churchill worked or where Matt Hancock got sucked off during lockdown. It'd be cool, and it would raise revenue for the government. Anyway, just a thought, you know? So all in all, it's fine. It's okay. They weren't lying when they said that there would be no surprises and it would be pretty boring. I spoke earlier about the economic proposition having a distinct lack of left-wing influence, and I meant it. The lack of spine when it comes to addressing the 2-child benefit cap, for example. Also, a bit of a minor point, but this manifesto was absolutely fucking shit to read. The layout wasn't clear and you couldn't read one section without the context of the others, so it makes it really inaccessible for people wanting just a quick rundown. Just stick your key points per section in bullet point format. We don't need war and peace, for fuck's sake. I don't want you to woo me with your words. I don't need 100,000 pictures of Keir Starmer looking all stoic and sexy. That's what my bedroom wall's for. Just tell me your proposals in a way that doesn't make me want to saw my own cock off. Anyway, let me know what you think about the manifestos in the comments. I think we're probably going to need to keep our foot on the gas if Labour are elected and make sure they aren't just coasting by simply because they aren't the Conservatives, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please do like and subscribe, it really helps. As always, a big shout out to my vicious and provocative supporters on Patreon. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so from just £1 a month, the link is in the description. Love you, bye bye.